Hello, and today is Flag Day. Actually, yesterday was Flag Day, but I needed a day to come up with things to talk about. What is Flag Day? I don't know. I don't think it matters if I know what it is or not. All I know is Flag Day, so it's a day to talk about flags. While I haven't heard any news about flags recently, I have heard some pretty interesting things about turkeys. Not turkey as in bird, turkey as in country. And that's exactly the issue. The country turkey was tired of being compared to the bird turkey, which is completely understandable, as the bird turkeys are not particularly flattering to be compared to. So they got a new spelling to differentiate the two. T smiley face RKIYE, which I've been told is pronounced turkey. It's a cute word, but I have one observation to make. Imagine you're the country turkey. You're tired of people comparing you to the bird turkey, so you decided to change your name to Turkey. Yay! Although I'm pretty sure that's how it's always been spelled, and it was just people in North America calling it Turkey because North Americans seem to hate putting accents on letters. Personally, I think this is a way better spelling. Turkey, yay! Let's see, what other flag-related things can I talk about? There's the American flag, but I'm saving that topic for 4th of July. Ah, here's an idea. What's the most important component of a flag? Composition? Color choice? Design? Spacing? No, none of that. Wind. If you don't have wind, then you just have a floppy piece of cloth on a pole. In fact, flags definitely had to exist before flagpoles did. Otherwise, all the current flagpoles would now just be normal poles. So I wonder who came up with the idea of putting cloth on a pole, and then renaming that specific pole to give it that specific role. And if a flagpole's definition is just a thing that harnesses a floppy piece of cloth, well, in that case, now I'm a flagpole. Alright, fine, I'm a flag squirrel. In case you're wondering, a squirrel is just a pole, but squirrel-shaped instead. Alright, I'm just trying to transition into the fact that I found this shirt. This has been Billy Nutjo's Rant, and I hope you enjoyed. Today is the summer solstice, a word so full of s, it sounds like it's about to explode. Which would kind of make sense, as explosions are generally hot. The sun is also hot, and the summer solstice is the longest day of the year, so that means the most sun. Sun usually means beach, right? Well, not today, as sunlight tends to get caught in the sand and heated up, because grains of sand are like crystals that reflect light and stuff. I'd like to do a rant on a beach, but beaches are also populated, which means more interruptions. But right now I'm not here to talk about beaches, or population. I'm here to talk about what populates the beach. Sand. You know sand? That stuff I mentioned not 10 seconds ago? Well, it's pretty interesting. Alright, it's not really that interesting, but it can be fascinating. Those aren't synonyms, right? Nah, of course not. But you see, some sand is formed in a process called erosion. Erosion is basically when a rock gets beaten enough that it starts turning into smaller rocks. And that's how sand is gotten. It just keeps getting beat more and more. Don't tell that to any prisoners locked in concrete cells, though. Then they could just punch their way out, which I'm sure would be an incredibly pleasant and time-efficient process. That's because putting in the physical work with yourself required for the natural process of erosion is crazy. For example, have you ever heard of the Grand Canyon? You know that hole that's so big that it doesn't even look like a hole, it just looks like a cliff? Yeah, that was made through erosion. I don't even think that there's a non-insane way to explain how that went down, but I'm not going to touch on it any further. I would not step foot in the Colorado River. I don't want to get beaten for 5 to 6 million years. Which, by the way, if it took that long, I'm pretty sure the river's finished with the Grand Canyon by now, because there's no way it even reaches the walls anymore. So I guess it's just going to keep going down, if it can even do any more at all. But I'd say it's done enough work. You've done enough work this history. Come on, Colorado River, take a nice break. A day or two on the sand. Just please don't grind up the sand so far that it'll never get out of anything it touches. If you just got a new car, you definitely don't want to go to the beach, because that thing will get gritty real quick, I'm sure. Because if the sand is fine enough, then it can basically just do whatever it wants. And I don't mean fine as in polite, I mean fine as in small. The particles are small enough, the sand grains are small enough, that they can basically just go through any orifice on the planet. So logically, you'd think that incredibly fine sand, since it's so fine, you just clip right through it and go right into the sand. But no, that's called quicksand, which is actually more of a sludge than sand. Coming to think about it, that probably makes it worse, because it's like totally indecipherable from normal sand. You can't just dip your foot in. You gotta go deep in before you can't get out anymore. Like how lava on the surface can sometimes just look like normal rock until you touch it and then you're on fire and then you have a few questions. I've also heard some people say that quicksand is not an appropriate name, as you don't actually sink quick, you sink slowly. However, compared to the sinking speed of normal sand, I'd say quicksand is pretty quick. So of course it would only be appropriate to title quicksand based off its speed, as that's really its only notable quality. If you were to classify normal sand by its speed, it would just be slow stand bland sand. Nothing interesting there. On the topic of speed, that's all I have to say. That was pretty quick. This has been Billy Nacho's Rant, and I hope you enjoyed. This morning, I was eating food off of a plate, and I had an idea for stuff to talk about. Kitchens are usually where food comes from. And in kitchens, there are a lot of machines to make making food easier, because otherwise it would take too long, and then you'd have to shift your entire schedule to compensate for the 2 hours it takes to fix a waffle. I myself can only work the simple machines, such as microwaves or toasters. And unlike toasters, I am actually partially aware of how a microwave works. You see, what it does is that it releases like microwave radiation beams onto the food, which causes the water particles to kind of shake around, which causes friction, which causes heat, which causes the food to heat up. One can only imagine during this process, because of the heat, the water would evaporate. So that's why you should never put a cup of water in a microwave, unless you just want less water that tastes worse. But really, if you're complaining about the taste of your water, you might as well just be drinking something else. It can't really taste like much else. It's water. It tastes like moisture. Sure, there could be, like, things in the water, but you shouldn't be drinking water if there are things in the water. Maybe you could put the water in the microwave to kill the things that are in the water, but now you have water that tastes bad because it's been microwaved with a bunch of dead organisms in it. You know what? Water's too complicated a topic. Let's get back to the machines and stuff. One particular kitchen machine is a lot different than the others, at least in my experience. Because I know for sure that in my entire life, I have never seen a dishwasher with a transparent door. How does it work? Well, it cleans dishes. That's all I know for sure. The process of which it cleans dishes? Zero clue. Probably with soap or something, but like, I've never seen it. And when I open the dishwasher when it's done dishwashing, why are the dishes hot if it uses soap? What happened in there that caused the dishes to increase by a solid, like, 15 degrees? And since the door's always closed while the thing's functioning, I have no idea what the spinny propeller blade at the bottom's purpose is. Is it to blow around soap? Is it to levitate water? Like one of those practice skydiving giant fan rooms that, like, pushes you up? But this one obviously wouldn't have to be as powerful because it's not pushing a person, it's pushing just, like, water or something. But then again, it seems kind of unnecessary.
Hey, it's me, Tenerbot. It seems your friend has called me over to explain to you simpletons how a dishwasher works.
Actually, yeah, that would be kind of cool. Go on, explain how a dishwasher works.
Now you may not have ever guessed this, but a dishwasher washes dishes. So that you, the creature, can use the dishes for dining. The spinning thing at the bottom sprays water up to wash off the grime and scum. Both of which I'm sure you are very familiar with, as you are those things.
In no way do I blame you for this. He almost got to explaining how a dishwasher worked, and might have got to explaining how a dishwasher worked, but that middle part kinda tore it. Oh hey, wanna know something interesting I just thought of? A washing machine is what you put clothes in to wash them. But a dishwasher is also technically a washing machine. It just doesn't wash clothes, it washes dishes. Isn't that interesting? Also, an air conditioner is like a fridge, but with refrigerators, you're supposed to keep them closed. But with an air conditioner, it's like the opposite of a refrigerator. You keep it open all the time. I'm also not entirely sure what a mini fridge is, but judging from my current information, I'm guessing it's just another term for an air conditioner. Or it could be for a freezer, because for some reason, freezers are usually smaller than refrigerators and don't contain any shelves, because I guess freezers contain more cardboard boxes of like pizza or waffles or something. I could continue talking about kitchen appliances, and I'd like to, but as for now, this has been Billy Nacho's Rant, and I hope you enjoyed.
Did he decide not to show up today or something? Hey, that's totally fine with me. I'm much more interesting anyway. What do you want to do? So you don't want to hang out with me? Well, then who do you want to hang out with? I swear I'm more interesting than that acorn.
Thanks for letting us shoot fireworks off the roof.
Yeah, of course, no problem. We just have to wait until everyone gets here, and then we can start. You did tell her that we're going to be shooting fireworks off the top of the roof, right? Because there's really no way she would guess that.
Yeah. She has totally been informed and will be arriving shortly.
Well, if you did remember to tell her, then I guess this specific message rocket was a complete waste of time.
Yup, it is pretty useless because I totally did that thing. Alright, you made your point. Sometimes I forget things. Just shoot the rocket. It was a bit wordy, don't you think?
Well, if it works, it works. Otherwise, yeah, that was kind of stupid. Oh, you don't trust me for a second, but some random flashy letters in the sky show up, and you're like, oh, I need to investigate this immediately. Oh, this is the most important thing in the world to me. Well, guess what? The most important thing in the world to me is helping people out. So here you go. Have a nice party or whatever.
Oh, hi, Jelly. How'd you get here? This is great. Now I can start my rant on flags.
Ah, come on, we don't have time for that. The sun's almost coming up. You can do a rant on flags whenever you want. This is a special thing. It's the one night of the year where doing something illegal is slightly less illegal. And you have to admit, that's pretty cool.
Alright, you've convinced me. Let's do it. Hey, wait a minute. This isn't even your roof. This is just the roof of the place that you work at. How'd you get permission to be up here?
After being trapped in the mall last Christmas, the store owner decided that I was responsible enough to get roof privileges.
And you're using the privileges you got by being responsible, launching fireworks off the roof?
Huh. I guess I didn't think that through. Don't tell anyone about this, okay?
Maybe I'll keep my mouth closed if the fireworks are good.
Well, the fireworks are great. No problem there.
I've noticed something strange recently. We've all probably seen a landmark before. Maybe not in person, but we're probably all aware of those famous structures throughout the world. And the thing I've noticed that's strange are the pictures of those specific structures. Some structures are a lot more photo-friendly than others. For example, the Eiffel Tower. It's really, really big. So if you're in Paris and you have your camera pointed even slightly up and in the right direction, then you're probably going to get a picture of it, even if you didn't want that. That's a pretty photo-friendly structure. On the other hand, the Statue of Liberty is always facing away from land. So if you wanted a picture of it from the front, then you'd have to be on like a boat or something. Not very photo-friendly. This could easily be solved if the monolith that the statue is standing on was just given a turntable. That way the statue could be facing whichever way it wants. And then of course there are the structures that are impossible to get all in one photo. Like the Great Wall of China. That thing doesn't stop. It just keeps going forever. I bet if you took every single brick that made the pyramids of Egypt and lined them up, then it would only be like a third of the materials required to build that wall. The opposite of something like the Great Wall, which I'm sure took a lot of architects and a lot of builders, would be something like the Grand Canyon, which took exactly -1 architects and -1 builders, because it just sort of showed up. As I've said before, that Colorado River is not something to be messed with. I'm sure since this took millions of years to form, dinosaurs went up to Arizona and said, hey look, it's Arizona, let's come back here later. And then they come back later, and where'd it go? Now there's just a hole here. How did this happen? Oh, of course, that makes perfect sense. The reason why it's called Arizona is because the time people got around naming it, it's just mostly air, because the Colorado River went right through it. And this whole thing still doesn't really make sense to me, because if we're going by the logic that bodies of water that are moving can cut through land like that, then how come there isn't a giant pit under every waterfall? Here's a fun activity to do. If you want to be like the Colorado River, step 1, take a brick and then spit on it for a few million years and see if the brick dissolves. Or you can take the fast route and take a brick and hit it with a hammer, because a hammer is like a million years worth of spit. It's that powerful. Alright, I've convinced myself. I'm gonna go talk to a construction company and convince them to use years of spit as a measurement technique to see how powerful equipment is. Like, yeah, this excavator, it's got at least 3 billion years worth of spit. That's how much it can dig. What was I talking about? Buildings or something? Oh yeah, one last famous landmark observation I have to make is Mount Rushmore. You know that cliff with all those faces on it? Yeah, that one. I don't know why, but the trees right under the faces just make me angry for some reason. Why are they like that? Why is there like some trees over there, one right under that one, and some trees over here? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't look natural. It looks like some people were hired to plant trees in a way that looks natural, but they just didn't do a very good job. I don't know what's up with those trees. What? Those trees back there? Yeah, of course, they 100% look real. This has been Billy Nutjo's Rant, and I hope you enjoyed. Do you by any chance have any idea how we got here and where we are? Well, that stinks. I was hoping for an up and down headshake for that answer.
Attention moron squirrel and his accomplice. Please turn your heads up and left.
Oh, hey, it's you. I'm assuming you know why we're here and how we got here, right?
You're here because I want you here, and you're in that room, while I am in this room because your room has spikes on the ceiling. Watch this.
Oh, well, isn't that just peachy? Don't you think it would be a little nicer to put your house guests in the non-spike ceiling room?
I suppose it would, but then I would no longer be able to do this.
Yeah, it's been established. But you know what hasn't been established? Who you are. In fact, I don't even know your name.
Good point. And seeing as this is the last chance I'll ever have to tell you, I might as well right now. You two will be the second and third people I've told my name to. The first being Chuck Monkey. But if you insist, here we go. I was born a little girl without cool robots or a giant laboratory. Naturally, after acquiring those things, my current name, Violet, felt less fitting. So I decided to change my name to the much more intimidating Ultraviolet. Oh, ultraviolet light is the third highest wavelength radiation on the electrum.
I know what ultraviolet light is. I'm just confused on how you didn't like the name Violet, so you just slightly changed it.
I already answered that. Ultraviolet is cooler and more sciencey, just like me. And it's definitely a better name than Billy Nut Joe. I didn't say anything.
I also heard in your little story that you were born as a girl. Yet I've always heard Chuck Monkey refer to you as he.
And?
Are you trans?
Mm-hmm.
Huh, cool. Have you ever been to a pride parade?
Of course not. Why would those nice people want anything to do with me?
Why do you say that? I think... Oh, of course, I forgot about your evil thing. By the way, out of all the people you could have chosen, why is it me that you want to destroy? Apparently he has a list.
My list of why Billy Nut Joe should be destroyed. Number 1. He has a stupid tail.
What? The first thing on your list of reasons why I should be destroyed is I have a stupid tail? What could that possibly mean?
Well, just simply compare your tail to anyone else's, and you'll see what I mean.
Alright, maybe my tail is slightly stupid. But just because I'm lacking an outline doesn't mean I should die.
Number 2. There would be much more parking space if you did your show somewhere else. Number 3. You're an easy target. Number 4. You live in a tree that would be better off made into pencils than house someone like you. Number 5. Your show is boring. Number 6. You are boring. Number 7. Your peaceful ideologies bug me. Number 8. You ask way too many questions. Number 9 I didn't write down because I thought it was so good I would never forget, but turns out I did forget. Number 10 is left blank for now because I figured when I came out to you a minute ago, if you weren't supportive, then I could have added that to my list as the first truly legitimate item, but unfortunately you are supportive, and this is annoying because now I only have 9 items on my list. So I guess this whole thing could just have been number 11.
Oh, brilliant! Those are even more legitimate reasons. The list totally got better after the first item. Those are not good reasons for me to be destroyed. Did you just write that list now? And what about Jelly? What did she do? Why is she here with me? If you can only come up with barely 10 reasons for me to be destroyed, let's see the other list.
That's number 8, if you're paying attention. And as for a list of reasons Jelly should be destroyed, Number 1, ruined first robot plan. Number 2, ruined second robot plan. But of course, none of that will matter, because after I press this red button here, you both will be turned into pancakes.
Waffles.
Huh?
The pattern of the spikes on the ceiling, it would create a waffle shape, not a pancake.
That's a oddly light-hearted thing to point out in this particular situation. Why the sudden mood change?
I just remembered how heroic and redeeming it would be for someone to save us right now, that's all. Oh, unfortunately for us though, no animal could possibly hear us from inside this chamber. Unless there was some sort of canine with pretty good hearing, but no way.
Never fear, I'm here. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, that reminds me. While I was coming over here, I was messing with a few wires and may have disconnected a few things. Hopefully that doesn't inconvenience you. Huh, maybe this is a situation in which I have to win by using my superpowers. I'll let you have the first couple swings though, just to make this fair. Yet another genius victory by me.
Oh, well, look at that. Turns out his plan, of which I don't think that was actually a plan, but rather just a series of events that happened, it worked. We're saved. And my respect for Supernova has gone from like 0 to 5, so that's pretty good.
You're welcome for saving you, Billy. Just feel free to let yourself out anytime. I'm gonna leave now.
Alright, 2.5. Hello, how are you? I actually didn't want to do a rant today. I just wanted to work on making games and stuff on Scratch. But apparently, Scratch decided to revoke my variable privileges. And this wasn't even a thing that should happen, because I should be allowed to use variables just like everyone else can. But for some reason, my variables weren't working today. I told the program to do one thing, and it would do a completely irrelevant other thing, in the wrong location. But this has happened to me before, so judging by past experiences, all I have to do is wait until tomorrow and try again. Because that's the point of computers, right? They don't do what they're told until you come back a day later, and then they're so lonely without you that they start working again. Of course, that's how all computers work. Seldom known fact about Ada Lovelace. She actually had to include a spot on the punch card that said, please, in order for a computer to do anything. And since Scratch was giving me trouble, and I didn't have a topic today, because I was just going to do normal things for fun, I decided, why not give Scratch some trouble and actually talk about it again? It's only been how long? Egad, 6 months. You know what? I don't blame Scratch for being angry at me. I'd be pretty bitter too if no one talked to me in 6 months. Hey Jelly, have you ever tried thinking in different fonts? Sure, it's a strange question, but if you have extra fonts at your disposal, why not use them? Yeah, there we go. Here's a nice sample size of Scratch fonts in order from top left, left, bottom left, top right, right, bottom right. I'm not sure of the word for this kind of ordering. Now when you look up at this setup of squiggles, which one stands out to you the most? Oh, is it the one appropriately titled marker? That's way bolder than everything else for no apparent reason? No, that's not the one I was implying. And it's not the one titled pixel either, even though that one does stand out the most, excluding marker. But I'm talking about the one that stands out the third most. Curly font is what it's asininely named. This font in particular stands out the most to me, third place. But that's not really emphasizing my emphasis on it. But curly font is certainly the one I have the most gripes with. For example, on the left, we have a G written in the handwriting font. And on the right, we have a G written in the curly font. What's the main difference between these two G's? Well, the G on the right is a lot more serif-y. And serif is a word I just learned a few minutes ago, which is basically a fancy pants word for, look at my little swoop. And whilst the word serif does define swoopage, you can clearly see on the left is the font actually titled serif, which is noticeably less swoopy than the curvy font. And the handwriting font, which is the one in the middle, is all just one big swoop. So that should be the one titled serif if we're going purely off swoop. But we aren't. For example, there are some other defining factors. All you have to do is look a little closer. Here's one of the weirdest anomalies with all these fonts. On the left is the one titled handwriting. And usually when you think handwriting, you think less professional, more amateur than something a computer would make, like a typewriter or a keyboard. But as you can clearly tell, the one on the left, which is handwriting, is a lot cleanerly done than the one on the right, curvy. Look at that outline. Look at that poor outline. it looks like the person who was writing it was shivering, which does not lead to good handwriting, but apparently it leads to good curvy, because this is the curvy finished product we got. And if you didn't think curvy font was weird enough, the N on the left is lowercase, the N on the right is uppercase. Anyone who's ever written a lowercase and uppercase N knows they look very different. The uppercase N is a lot sharper. It goes up, down, right, up. But apparently, for the N in curvy font, they just said, you know what, we've done enough capital letters, let's just make the lowercase bigger. It worked for some other letters, why not N? Even though we already have a special symbol for an uppercase N that we already use. The person creating this font went through the effort of drawing out every single character on the keyboard, but then just gave up on uppercase N. Maybe it was a long workday, I don't blame them. I do have one compliment for this font. It's parentheses fully close, and it's one of only 2 fonts to do so. What's the other font with fully closing parentheses? Why, it's Marker, of course. The one that stood out to you the most, right? Oh, don't tell me you've already forgotten about poor Marker font. Don't disrespect Marker font. I use it to title episodes. You know, I use the most unintelligible font so that people will have to actually click on the episode in order to read it. But that's all I have to say for serifs and fonts and things of that like. So this has been Billy Nacho's Rant, and I hope you enjoyed. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'd never do that to you. Anyway, hello. Welcome to Billy Nut Joe's Rant. Why am I starting this episode like that, even though I usually just get right into the topic? Well, that's because the first ever episode started like that. And today we're going back to basics. Even though last time I kinda did that, but this time it's gonna be more like before. Today's topic is going to be comedy. Yeah, that's right. Today we're going to be talking about funny. Or rather, not specifically comedy or funny. Really, we're going to be talking about jokes. Comedic jokes that people may find funny. So, we're just going to be talking about all of it. But really, what I find funny is probably different than what she finds funny, and it's absolutely different from what you find funny. But I think it's more easy to agree on what isn't funny. Where Scratch ties into this is the Explore tab. I think I haven't covered in a long time. But I've been seeing some of the animations on the Explore tab. And, not to say most of them are bad, it's just that most of them are not funny. And I don't mean that in a I didn't find that funny kind of way. I mean that in the fact that most of the animations that I watched, they didn't even include any elements that could have possibly been funny. However, even though these projects do not contain anything remotely close to funny, and in some cases aren't even trying to be funny, I still see comments in the comment section that say things along the lines of LOL and XD. XD not actually being an acronym for anything, but rather just a emoticon showing someone laughing, like :D or closing parentheses. Keep in mind I'm not clarifying that for either of you, I'm clarifying this for myself, because for some reason I thought it was an acronym, which makes me very open parentheses. What's mysterious about these animations is that there very easily could have been a joke in most of them. However, the creator specifically chose to not include any jokes. And I think, whoa! I just realized something. I just had a revelation. Just because a project is labeled animation doesn't necessarily coincide to it having a joke. Animation and comedy are not the same. They're 2 different things. Maybe all the stuff I've been seeing on the Explore tab are actually just experimental films designed to show off just ordinary aspects of everyday life. Things that are relatable. Things that leave an impression on the viewers. It doesn't have to be comedy. It doesn't have to be funny. It doesn't even have to be an animation if you try hard enough. Is it okay to create something just for the sake of doing it? And it being in existence? Of course. You can make an animation without knowing the first thing about comedy. That's what I do. Not everything I say is sent off to a board of people to analyze it and deconstruct every single funny thing I say. No, this is just my train of thought. And, yeah, my train of thought just crashed, because some of these animations that obviously don't contain anything funny in them include #comedy in the title. Come on. Without the use of labels, or in this case, mislabels, you could have passed this off for anything. If someone criticizes you, you just say, nah, this is actually just this. But no, you said this is comedy when it's not. Just like how a lot of people also put games in the title when the animation is animation. It's like that famous painting, This Is Not a Pipe, except this is not a joke. But then again, who am I to criticize other people's genres when I don't even know what genre this is? Is it a talk show because I talk about things? Is it a variety show because I talk about a variety of things? Or is this Billy Nut Joe's Rant and I hope you enjoyed? Who knows? And usually with me saying that line, the episode would automatically end, but as long as I keep talking and we both keep waving goodbye, then of course the episode can't end, unless of course I run out of breath, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen for a million years. That will not happen until Yesterday I talked about comedy, and a lot of comedy comes from subverting an expectation. And so that's what I decided to do for this episode. Usually when coming up for topics for episodes, I do things that I'm interested in. For example, you can probably imply, from how little I've talked about sports, I'm not particularly interested in sports. So that's why today I'm going to be talking about sports. Wow, bet you didn't see that coming. The last time I talked about sports was the Olympics. However, today I'm going to be talking about two sports that, oh, well, actually, one of them is in the Olympics and one of them isn't. Yeah, football's in the Olympics, but football isn't in the Olympics. And if you haven't figured it out by now, today we're going to be discussing the whole sports ball naming issue. Which of these two sports should really be named football? The black and white hexagonal one, or the oval-shaped brown shoelaces one? The way I see it, personally, it doesn't really matter. It's a square rectangle situation. Whereas a square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle can't be a square. Or in this case, a soccer ball can be called a football, but an American football is generally not called a soccer ball. And it is exceedingly rare for a person to just come up to you with two balls in their hands and say, hey, which of these is a football? No, that usually doesn't happen. When someone's talking about football, there's a context assigned to that, so you know what they're talking about. If they're saying, hey, my friend just scored a goal in football, you probably think, hey, he's talking about the white ball. But if he says, hey, I just scored whatever a goal is called in American football, you'd be like, oh, he's playing the other one. So this whole debate is kind of pointless. Unless, of course, you just like rambling about how things have strange names. And I'm not opposed to that. I like when things have strange names, because it gives you time to think about the creation of those names. Even though I don't know anything about the creations of football or football, sometimes it's just fun to think about why things are called what they're called. For example, the expression, the best thing since sliced bread, is it's sort of a strange thing to say, because that's implying that between the creation of bread and sliced bread, there has not been any creations more worthy of your praise than those two things, which for some reason were created separately. Oh, sorry, what's this? American football, also known as gridiron football? Wait, so you're telling me there's already a unique name for the American football that isn't just football? Why does this debate even exist? Or maybe it hasn't been in existence for a long time, and no one bothered to tell me. Thanks. And it's not even like it's a bad name either. Grid makes sense, because there's a grid laid out on the floor, and iron is also appropriate, as it's hard to watch as people ram it themselves into each other. It's not a very polite sport. However, still on the topic of football, there's another sport that's similar to football in function, not name. Similar to American football, that is, and it's called rugby. And if we're going off the fact that football soccer is played with feet and socks, and American football, or gridiron football, is played on a grid, then you'd assume rugby would be played on a rug, but no, it's played on a field. Although it would be cool if there was a sport where the ball was coated in metal, and everyone played on a rug with their socks, so that everyone would have a lot of static electricity. So as they're passing around the ball, everyone's just getting electrocuted. That would be pretty funny. Anyways, rugby, from my incredibly limited understanding, is like gridiron football, but without any armor. So it's like hard mode. Both sports share the same spirit. It's just that in rugby you don't get any life insurance. So why doesn't it just join in on the trend and call itself like hard iron football or rug burn or something? This has been Billy Nut Joe's Rant, and I hope you learned something. I definitely did. Hi, today I'm going to be bringing up a very important topic. An issue I think every person on Scratch who makes medium to large size projects absolutely needs to know. A topic that I seem to be the only person educating themselves on. A topic that's so important to cover that I've actually already covered it before, 155 episodes ago. But back then, I didn't understand that in an informational video, you have to be clear when you're being sarcastic because of my sarcastic brand of humor, so that episode can be confusing. But here I am, all this time later, to deliver you the clear-cut delivery of this topic, with absolutely no sarcasm. This topic I've alluded to so heavily is the Doom Square. And Doom Square is not its official name. It doesn't have an official name. So I'm giving it one, and it sounds cool. It may have a cool sounding name, but what it does is absolutely not cool. Because what it does is delete your sprites. Well, actually, it doesn't delete your sprites. It deletes your costumes, which are the components that make up a sprite. So it deletes portions of your sprite. But the deletion of anyone's stuff without their permission is incredibly rude. How do you counteract a Doom Square? Simply reload the page without touching anything. And that's basically my entire first episode on the Doom Square summarized in one sentence. To win a fight against the Doom Square, all you have to do is click the reload button at the top left of your page. And you win. I've had the knowledge of how to destroy a Doom Square ever since I first encountered it. But there's really no point in neutralizing the threat if you don't even know where it's coming from. I've looked at the Scratch forums to see if anyone else has encountered Doom Squares and how they tried to fix it. And apparently some people think that it's actually a hacker who hacks into your account to maliciously replace art with gray rectangles with question marks with unobtainable fonts. And to that I say, that's ridiculous. Those people said that they changed their passwords, and all of a sudden the Doom Squares magically went away. And no, they didn't. That was probably just a coincidence. Don't bother changing your password. It's not a person that's doing this. No, it's not a hacker. In fact, it's quite literally the opposite. While hackers do things intentionally, this Doom Square is absolutely an accident. Its creation is always an accident. Because I believe that it just comes from when a Scratch project can't properly load something. Because, well, Scratch isn't exactly the most powerful platform. And if my theory is correct, then there is no 100% reliable way to stop a Doom Square. Because there's always a slight chance something will go wrong while loading your stuff. However, I figured out 2 reliable ways to increase the chance of Doom Squares happening. And so if you avoid doing these things, then it'll happen a lot less. One thing you should definitely not do while loading a big project is switching from the project page to the editor, because this really messes up with the loading process and increases the chance of messing something up. And it's not like it's saving you time starting from the project page, because if it messes something up, you have to reload the page, and it would just take way longer. So don't switch from your project page to the editor while something's loading. And the second thing you should not do while something's loading is go off of that loading tab and start doing something else. Because Scratch thinks it can take a little shortcut and just hide the loading screen altogether while you're off another tab. And so naturally, it's not going to use all of its frame rate if you aren't even looking at it, so it'll skip a few frames, and those skip frames could have been your project being Doom Squared. You don't want that. Yeah, when your project's loading, you have to stare it down like a charging bull, or like a attacking grizzly bear. I'm not sure which of those things you're supposed to stare down. I wouldn't know. I don't have to deal with those things. But you know what I do have to deal with? Doom Squares. Or at least I did have to deal with them. But now that I know all these amazing techniques for dealing with Doom Squares, I'll never have to deal with them again. And now that you've learned all these techniques, you'll never have to deal with them again. Oh, what's that? You don't even use Scratch? You just like watching things on it? Well, good news for you. Because in my experience, you can't really be Doom Squared while looking at someone else's project. It's only your own project. And hey, maybe you don't even make your own projects on Scratch or watch anything on Scratch. Maybe you don't even use Scratch. But now, you know these helpful tips. So while you're not using Scratch, you can not use them. No matter who you are, I'm sure you can impress your friends with your no knowledge of nothingness. And hey, if you don't use Scratch and you've watched this episode to its end, assuming the fact that what you don't know can't hurt you, you're basically invincible. Oh, I'm jealous of you right now. I'm just a normal mortal, whose name is Billy Nut Joe. This has been my rant, and I hope you enjoyed.